Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, you know, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
Fact of life. Interesting change of tune.
That single exchange lit the fuse. Here was a daytime TV host who often leaned on race as her strongest card, now forced to confront her own family's entanglement with history's darkest chapter. And here was Gutfeld, seizing the moment to point out what he saw as a glaring contradiction. But this wasn't just about ancestry or one awkward revelation. It was the spark that pulled Joe Rogan into the conversation, and soon, the clash would grow louder, sharper, and far more personal.
Sunny Hostin of The View finds out that this is fantastic. She is descended from slaveholders. Here's what she said when she went out on The View.
Really reluctant to do it because I just sensed that there could be something in my family history that would be disappointing. But what I found out was that my mother's family, while they are Puerto Rican, they actually originate from Spain. And the reason that they moved to Puerto Rico is because the slave trade had been sort of canceled in Spain and then Curacao, and then they moved all of their slaves to Puerto Rico. And so the family business, I had been told that they were printers and journalists. I still believe in reparations, by the way, so y'all can stop texting me and emailing me and saying that I'm a white girl and that I don't deserve reparations.
Okay, I'm not going to text you or email you, but it's true.
The studio lights caught Sunny's uneasy smile as she tried to explain away her family's past. The words came out halting, almost as if she knew the clip would live far beyond that broadcast. Her ancestors weren't just Puerto Rican, but Spaniards who had owned slaves before moving the family business overseas. She insisted she still believed in reparations, brushing aside the flood of messages calling her out. But then, like a comedian timing his punchline, Greg Gutfeld leaned in. His voice cut through the noise. Stick with us, and don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next takes this feud to an entirely new level.
You're right. Anytime she says something stupid, I'm going to go, slave owner! Lou, is this karma or what?
Well, first, I just want to go on the record to let everyone know that I am very much against slavery. Very brave to say that on this panel. Karma, definitely. I mean, it's one thing. It's going to be so awkward on, new episodes of The View when she tries to pull the race card.
Yes.
And then she's like, America is racist. And then they're like, yeah, they might be racist, but they're not like slave owner racist. like somebody that we...
For Gutfeld, it wasn't just a joke. It was a way to turn Sunny's favorite weapon, identity politics, back on herself. The irony was too sharp to ignore. The host who often lectures America on systemic guilt was now trapped in her own family's shadow. And in that moment, it wasn't just a revelation of ancestry. It was the spark that made her credibility wobble on live television.
And my mother
hush fell over the audience.
was deeply disappointing.
Sunny, how does this change you, though? You mentioned your mom was upset and this was shocking and maybe deep down you kind of resisted it. How has this changed you, knowing what you're hearing now?
I think at first I was deeply disappointed.
The slave thing is a bummer.
It's a bummer.
I make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Those hens are always clucking. They get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, and then I get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day.
Silence lingered until it didn't. A voice cracked it open with laughter disguised as truth, and suddenly, it wasn't just her ancestry on trial, it was her authority. Could someone who often framed America's past in sweeping judgments now excuse her own lineage with a casual bummer? The irony was impossible to miss, and the crowd knew it. The line between satire and indictment blurred, leaving the moment suspended, half comedy, half reckoning.
For more, we go to our chief Sunny Hostin correspondent for a reaction. She is shaming descendants of this. Will she continue to do that when she is now one of them, Dana? And it is funny. She is so wrapped up in identity, and she had no idea who she was.
Well, now we understand why she always makes Whoopi get the coffee.
And just when the laughter peaked, Gutfeld delivered the encore. Now we understand why she makes Whoopi get the coffee. It was absurd, theatrical, and cutting all at once. In an instant, Sunny wasn't the accuser, but the spectacle, trapped in a satire she couldn't escape. The stage lights burned hotter as Gutfeld circled his target. For years, Sunny had wielded identity like a sword, slicing through every debate with claims of privilege and systemic guilt. But that night, the sword turned in her hand.
I still believe in reparations, by the way, so y'all can stop texting me and emailing me and saying that I'm a white girl and that I don't deserve reparations. I still believe that.
Someone did that to you?
Yeah.
I don't know who sent her a thing telling her she was a white girl.
Okay, it's too much, people.
But clean off your television screen.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But maybe one day when we finally strip away this phony race war, it will finally expose this elite mentality. And we'll find out Sunny is just like Marie Antoinette, except she says, "Let me eat cake."
With a smirk, he suggested the revelation had stripped away her carefully crafted authority. If she had shamed others for their ancestral ties, would she keep doing so now that she was, as he teased, one of them? The audience didn't need to think the punchline had already landed.
Thing, and I would have even actually not give her any is she said, well, like, I guess that's just what they did back then.
Yeah.
She should have followed that up with saying something along the lines of, and I understand that that's a departure from the way I've talked about this before. That was like, to me, the one thing that was missing.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, okay, now that you have this information, have you had any personal growth? Do you think about things differently? You have to acknowledge that.
The room hadn't even cooled from Gutfeld's punch when another voice cut through, sharper, heavier. Joe Rogan stepped in, ready to strip away the last defense. Sunny's moral lectures? He called them hollow. Her habit of sneering at those without degrees? He flipped it, reminding everyone that wisdom doesn't need a diploma. And here's the hook. When Rogan turned the spotlight on her, the pedestal started to shake. Will Sunny stand tall or stumble under the weight of her own contradictions?
I think Sunny's very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
You know, that's what I think. The other ones, there's a couple of the other ones. Don't have to name any names. Who are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart but captured. And she's ideologically driven, and they have blinders on for sure. I don't think Sunny's dumb. But Whoopi is certainly not the brightest person. And what she just said just doesn't make any sense. It's just like so silly to say. It's not a well thought out. It's like if you had an idea for a premise and it was totally baked and half baked and you went on stage with it and it's nothing there.
Just go for it. Yeah,
there's nothing there.
The laughter hadn't even died down when the tone shifted. Rogan leaned in, voice low but sharp, like a scalpel cutting through the noise. He reminded the audience of Sunny's favorite posture perched high on moral ground, quick to shame, quick to judge. Yet when the same mirror turned on her, the outrage melted into excuses. And then came the twist. Rogan pointed to something deeper.
What the are you saying? It's the most bizarre headline.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%,
right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right. Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom.
He went further. The narrative Sunny spun about uneducated Americans collapsed under Rogan's pushback. He argued, almost matter of fact, that life experience can teach more than any classroom, and that dismissing ordinary people as ignorant was not just wrong, it was proof of how out of touch her rhetoric had become.
The culture shift between right and left authoritarianism, and now people don't recognize that if you just stopped looking at it in terms of red and blue, look at the actions, whether it's war, suppression of free speech, pharmacological interventions that are mandatory, whatever it is, that used to all be associated with the authoritative right, the authoritarian right, and now those things are being embraced by the left. And I just think it's just an ideology thing, and I think we get confused and we think we're on the right side, and if it's our side that's saying this, for sure that's the right thing to do, and no one's critically thinking about this.
Joe Rogan is the gateway drug for young men that thought they were Democrats to become MAGA. Joe Rogan is the bridge. And on that bridge, they'll see RFK. They'll see Elon Musk.
Charlie Kirk had pointed to the same cracks. Latino men leaning red, black voters inching away from tradition, working families reevaluating their loyalties. Rogan amplified it. Just because a voter didn't carry a diploma didn't make them ignorant. In fact, lived experience often carried a wisdom no degree could teach. The crowd grew quiet, sensing the shift. What began as a roast was now a reckoning. Rogan wasn't tearing Sunny down with insults. He was pulling the rug out from under her arguments. And in that silence, the contradiction echoed louder than any laugh line.
It is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies-infested henhouse. Real fans of The View that are like, oh, these ladies are on point. Most of those people can't leave the house. Like, they're probably immobile.
Right. Because their mom's taking their kids to school, and that's,
It's a very strange show, but it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch them.
It's good entertainment.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
The clash didn't end on stage. It spilled out into living rooms, timelines, and headlines. Clips of the exchange raced across social media, drawing cheers from those who felt Gutfeld had finally said what many were thinking. Others rushed to defend Sunny, arguing she was still processing a painful truth. But the louder chorus accused her of brushing off history with a shrug. And that leaves the question, was this a moment of unfair pile-on, or the public demanding real accountability? Let's see how the audience took sides.
Sunny Hostin, I think, went to Notre Dame. Her son's at Harvard. Her daughter's at Cornell. She's married to the Ivy League. And that's why she looks down on everyone else as a bunch of stupid losers who didn't vote the right way because they're not as smart as she is. I spent many years across from Sunny Hostin on the set of Bill O'Reilly. She is not as smart as she thinks she is.
There could be something in my family history that would be disappointing.
Negative.
I think at first I was deeply disappointed.
The slave thing is a bummer.
It's a bummer.
By the next morning, the exchange was everywhere. Clipped, captioned, replayed on timelines like a highlight reel nobody could escape. In living rooms, the laughter from Gutfeld's jab was replayed with knowing nods. Finally, some viewers said, someone said out loud what we've all been thinking.
I don't love you, but I also hate that squawking bird, so I hate the whole thing. And frankly, that show, you want to talk about a show that set women back, is The View. You want to talk about that show, if the CIA is engineering, Antifa and fucking the Capitol riot, some crazy misogynist engineered The View, because there's nothing worse than The View. In terms of there are so many brilliant women out there, none of them are on The View. None of them have gone near the set of The View. I mean, they have brought in the lowest tier of the, what is it, the Y chromosome?
No,
the X. These are people who should not be allowed out of the house. They have a national platform. I mean, it is crazy. They have no idea. These people have never read a book.
And there's versions of it.
But the reaction wasn't unanimous. A smaller chorus defended Sunny, arguing that anyone blindsided by such a revelation would stumble through their words. They called it shock, not hypocrisy. Still, the louder current was impossible to miss. Critics hammering the way she shrugged it off as just a bummer, as if history could be filed away like old paperwork. It became more than a TV spat. It was a cultural Rorschach test. To some, Gutfeld was the truth teller. To others, Sunny was a woman caught off guard. And in between, the public kept hitting replay, trying to decide which version of the story they believed.
There's some of us that can be chameleons and decide not to embrace our ethnicity so that we can pass.
Sunny, I don't think that's fair. You go by a different name. Yeah.
Wow, she really is that racially ignorant. And your response?
You know, it's not the first time, and it won't be the last time that the hosts at The View come after me, or that liberals come after me in whatever way. They can't stand the fact that a minority female would be a conservative Republican.
By the time the clip made its way into cable news debates, the story had shifted. What began as a roast of Sunny Hostin was no longer just about one host's awkward phrasing. Commentators were asking a bigger question. What happens when identity politics turns inward?
And they look at what happened on The View it's Democrats that are racist. These liberal extremists are the ones that are racist. They're the ones that think minorities are incapable of going to the DMV to get an ID to vote. They're the ones that are racist that say minority parents are incapable of finding the school for their children. Let's let independents, conservative Democrats realize that no, it's not Republicans that are racist or sexist. It's liberal Democrats that have done this for a long time, and I hope that really goes to the heart of what happens in the House, Senate, and governor's races coming.
I've always been grateful when people show you who they are. I don't want to think that someone is one thing and then you find out later, no, they really are the enemy. So there is a favor to be thanked for all of this. I know it can be harmful to your feelings, but at the same time, you know exactly where some of these people stand.
The irony was glaring. Someone who often wielded race as a weapon now faced the backlash of history, and the conversation stretched beyond her. On one side, pundits argued that liberal voices too often assume minorities must think a certain way. On the other, critics of Gutfeld claimed the mockery itself revealed the deep fractures in America's cultural divide.
Have you ever seen that video? No. Pull that video up, because it's one of my favorites.
A new report from Reuters today found that every single living president is a descendant of slave owners, except for one, and it's not Barack Obama. Turns out Donald Trump is the one who didn't actually have ancestors that owned slaves.
To some, Sunny's stumble proved a point. That politics built on ancestry and grievance will eventually collapse under their own contradictions. To others, it was a reminder that history spares no one, and that weaponizing race in debate can backfire spectacularly.
It's a bizarre show.
So we had 8 minutes, and America's approach to race, pretty big topic, pretty important topic.
I think the way before you start, I think the way you described it is brilliant, and the way we should all look at it. Of course, you're going to see race. The idea of being colorblind is ridiculous, but treat everybody. They're just human beings.
Yeah.
Everybody's just individuals.
That's right.
That's what we should all hope for. And then there's some people who are good intentioned, but have a very narrow perspective and a very limited amount of information that they're operating under, that will try to pretend that these things are overall good, are net positive.
Right. And Sunny Hostin may be one of those people.
It began with a DNA test and a single phrase, just a fact of life. From there, Gutfeld's mockery and Rogan's rebuttal turned Sunny's moment of surprise into a national talking point. The irony of preaching about history while stumbling over your own family's past was too sharp for the public to ignore. In the end, this wasn't only about Sunny Hostin. It was about the fault lines running through American politics, race, history, and accountability colliding in plain sight. And like every good story, it leaves a question hanging. When the next revelation comes, who will be ready to face it head on? This video features commentary based on publicly aired segments from Joe Rogan, Greg Gutfeld, and verified media coverage involving Sunny Hostin and related news events. All references are drawn from public sources. No private or speculative information is included. The content fully complies with YouTube's community guidelines and fair use policy, intended for commentary, critique, and analysis. And if this perspective sparked a new thought or gave you something fresh to consider, don't forget to subscribe because the next twist may be even bigger. Thanks for watching.